Hi! Xenoblade is my favorite game series. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a wondrous and enriching play experience. It's also my least favorite of the main entries. Let's discuss why all of this is true. Score! 3 out of 4, but also the best music I've ever heard. The body of work composed primarily by Tomori Kudo and Hiroyoshiko Yamanaka of Ace, plus Kenji Hiramatsu and Manami Kiyota, with substantial contributions by Yasunori Mitsuda, Mariam Abounnasr, Yoko Shimomura, and others. It accounts for pretty much half of all the music I regularly listen to. Veritably scrumptious, moving sonic buffets. The Xenoblade soundscape echoes within my very bone marrow. I cried when Xenoblade 2's composers were confirmed in that first teaser trailer. When Xenoblade 3 was first revealed, I was more excited for the soundtrack than I was for the game. The scores are wholesale works of art unto themselves. I tear up every time just listening to the tracks employed throughout the party's untimely imprisonment in Agnes Castle. I'm not a music theorist. I, as a lazy drummer boy, only ever learned to read rhythm, not pitch. That said, I adore this medium. I love listening closely to every instrument and passage I can parse, and Xenoblade gives you everything you could ever want from an auditory experience. Except maybe intelligible English lyrical structure, but it's common enough among Japanese to English translations of lyrics. Anyway, what, in my lowly opinion, makes video game music so superior to all other forms of music, you ask? Well, I never made that claim, but since you're so curious, I'll tell you why. Aside from most of it, particularly the Japanese stuff being, in my opinion, more creative, textured, and melodically intricate than everything this side of John Williams, you live it twofold. Tied to your real life like all other music, and immersed in-game as well. It's magic. Let me give you an example. One of my all-time favorite songs is Bohemian Rhapsody. Real original, I know. Anyone who's heard it more than 10 times probably says the same thing, sings it at karaoke, whatever. I associate that song primarily with my late teen years and all the happenings there around. I get all warm and fuzzy and full of life when I hear it. The Kingdom of Tantal I also associate with this time in my life. I arrived here right as some pretty major things were happening for me, both internally and externally. Heavy stuff. But if we place all of that to the side, shelve it subconsciously, I associate this music with the state of the characters at this time in the story, the area itself, its gameplay, the atmosphere, the feeling of heightened stakes. There's this melancholy, or perhaps even peace, to be found here. If I could describe how this place makes me feel in one sentence, it would be, you're far from the end, but this is no longer the middle. This is not a film or show or a book. I'm here. I was a participant. Right now, this is where we used to be. You, the player, are wrapped in a warm blanket of safety and security as you undergo a fraught pilgrimage alongside made-up comrades. During your time with them, though, they're real as anything. The area themes for the Kingdom of Tantal, I prefer Bohemian Rhapsody to both of them, by a landslide, frankly, yet I remain twice, perhaps thrice as connected to these humble Ace compositions. And I find that fascinating. So now we've established my ghoulish infatuation with niche subject matter, let's get to talking about how the third game welcomes us in. Spoilers for all the games, by the way, if that somehow wasn't clear. Okay, most uninteresting load icon and title screen, great start, I feel nothing from this, pretty soulless and flat compared to the previous works of art we were treated to. Music is divine though, expected nothing less. Beautiful, engaging opening, plenty of intrigue, great presentation, well done stuff all around. Hearing Noah say,
Two colossal martial nations locked in war. Kevez and Agnes.
made me feel things to my core. But hey, dynamic music, that's always a sick addition.
That was over way too soon.
Hear that, Noah? Lance wants something a bit meatier.
Feels right at home in Xenoblade. Appropriate gravitas throughout this whole opener. Monolith have set the stage superbly as always. The training flashback went on a tad too long for my taste, but I felt it was well executed nonetheless. And of course, excellently staged and choreographed. Maybe just don't front-load your game with too many cutscenes, yeah. Like as a general rule. My controller's getting a little cold over there. But I guess I can let it slide, because I'm already in love with these characters. Especially Mwamba. No, for real, no shade, the whole main cast of this game and most of the heroes are top-shelf characters, but I just super vibe with the Keves crew, man. Particularly their English dub incarnations, they're great. Probably now my favorite 2 guys 1 gal trio in fiction, which is saying quite a bit, because I've read Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen. I want to be their friend. And also, Riku and Mwamba exist on their own plane beyond our mortal grasp, so that's why I specified trio. The second landmark I discover, Uni says, never seen this place before. But you have. You, of all people, definitely have. Let's talk about the menu music. It's a gorgeous and soothing Kyoto track, but it's also menu music in a Xenoblade game. One of a few factors contributing to this title's weakened atmosphere when compared to its predecessors. You pause, area theme goes away. Sometimes for extended periods depending on what business you might have in the menu. You skip travel anywhere at all, area theme cuts out.
Ugh, my plumage is everywhere.
Skip travel within the area, the theme cuts out and resets. Skip travel at night. Sorry, that beautiful area theme's done unless you manually select the crescent moon icon every time.
Ugh, I hate the rain.
I ended up always trying to match the current time of day as closely as possible whenever I skip travel, just to create some dang cohesion in my experience. The other games, well, they pretty much did all of this for you. 'Cause they're good games. Even Future Redeemed tried its own little band-aid solution to it. It was real cute. Didn't want to patch that convenience into the main game, I guess. Like 2's tutorials all over again. I'm on a total tangent now. This next thing is a minor issue, but skip travel should totally have been an actual in-universe mechanic. I was honestly expecting it to be, with everything else the Iris canonizes. Why couldn't this be one of them? This is probably the thing that needs the most contextualization, actually. In all these games, they expect us to believe these fuckers have time to be hoofing it back and forth across these massive worlds, their fate hanging in the balance just to help some Nopon get laid. Just have the Iris scan a landmark all Breath of the Wild style and then let you teleport freely between them. Have it so only Ouroboros and those in physical contact with them can do so, just so you don't risk breaking the other world building. Hell, if Mobius can do it, why not Ouroboros? This would, of course, prohibit skip travel during the first section, but it's only like 3 or 4 hours, and I think that would be sick. Like, fuck, remember old games when you wanted to go somewhere, so you actually had to goddamn go there yourself? Jesus! It would also eliminate the hilarity of imagining the individual heroes beelining it to you on a moment's notice whenever you need them for whatever menial reason, but that's okay! I prayed that this menu music would only play for the duration of the tutorial when I first opened the thing up. My prayers went unanswered. Colony 9, you'll love to see it. A breath of fresh air, this bath scene, especially for Japanese media. I'm a naturist, you see, and I've grown well and truly sick of the bullshit song and dance supposed friends of the opposite sex always affront each other with when it comes to matters of cohabitation. This game ain't perfect with it, and this scene probably only exists to demonstrate the cast's lack of sexual comprehension, but it is here for people to see. and that's what matters. I see this topic in a similar light to the just make all your characters bi argument. Unless you have an otherwise interesting idea to explore, never have your main cast be unnecessarily prudish. Unless you have an otherwise interesting idea to explore, always allow for your characters to be pan or asexual. You do your story a disservice by arbitrarily limiting its horizons. We want to be let into the characters' lives, not pushed out. No one I respect likes artificial autopiloted drama. And sure, this notion may be unrealistic, but in most cases it's just plain expedient writing. People can look one another in the eye and shoot the shit while unburdened by barriers of linen. Believe me, I've done it before. I'm okay. I made it out alive. No wounds to speak of. A naked human being is not a sex object to be ashamed of. Our bodies are gifts. Dumbass little sweaty slabs of flesh grafted onto some brittle-ass bones. They're nothing special, therefore they are. Love yourselves. Like Uni, my favorite fictional character as of my writing this. What a bus. Absolutely loving the dour atmosphere of this opener, by the way, really sets the game apart from its forebears while still feeling authentically Xenoblade.
Mama, my boy, surprise me, actually make it to your homecoming and have some real drama come from it! Oh, man.
In seriousness, the whole Alfeto Valley inciting incident is a genuinely fantastic and gripping sequence. In fact, playing this game for the first time with the English dub, these scenes completely eschewed any concerns I may have had for the quality of the vocal performances. The only major flubs were not the fault of the actors. 2 poorly stitched together takes on Noah here.
What in the flames are we even fighting? No, not just us. Agnes too.
And a misdirected effort for Tyon there. But we're marvelous everywhere else, and I couldn't be happier, because the English localizations of Xenoblade are all fantastic, and I would prefer to not be forced to play in Japanese. As mentioned earlier, the choreography and camera work especially have always been a huge strength of Xenoblade cutscenes, and it's no exception here, firing on all ether cylinders. Noah and Mio's duel in particular really stands out as an exemplary piece of work from all involved. But who's the real enemy? Well, that would be good old Wildride here, and he's a brilliant love-to-hate-him villain. He's like Metalface, but twice as sassy and 3 times as terrifying. Gotta love a common evil to bring the working class, the opposing factions together. Yeah. The design of Ouroboros is sick, Vandam's the G, Mobius are intriguing, the atmosphere is great, and this premiere off-seeing duet scene, well, it's something special to say the least. If I wasn't all in before this melancholic yet peaceful scene, I sure as hell was after it. This was the first moment in my playthrough where I thought, yep, this is Xenoblade. New and profound every time. The 2 groups split up. Understandably, it would take some time for a speech like the one Guernica gave to sink in. I do wish this whole area spanning Alfeto Valley, Colony 9, and Colony Gamma was a bit bigger. Not just because of what happens later, when the party seemingly take half a day and a full night to fuck around in the enemy's search zone. Like, seriously guys, get a goddamn move on, they were right on top of you seconds ago! No, I wanted to spend at least a comparable amount of time with the Agnes crew by themselves, as we did with the Kavesi in their neck of the woods. The part where they go their separate ways would have served as a perfect transitional hinge for a switch in perspective. Now, you might say that would ruin the pacing, but just make it not. Make something interesting for them to do, like, what if escape was impossible unless they killed their possessed comrades here? Give me some of that juicy conflict! Flesh out the Gamma area some more so that when we return later, we feel it like with Colony 9. I hate to say it, I love them to death. Together with the Kavesi, they make up my favorite RPG party of all time. The Agnes crew needed more fleshed out backstories. Specifically of the three of them together during their Gamma years, I don't think we ever see that. They each get some good stuff later on, but I felt it was pretty scant in comparison to their counterparts. Well, I honestly think Noah and friends could have used some more as well, but as it stands, what they've got in the final game is at least solid. Feels like Agnes just ain't quite on par, though. The reason I'm making such a big stink out of this is because of those flashy Ouroboros fusion scenes. The voices from all these memories are designed to entice and captivate. They're begging to be unearthed and pieced together by the player, but as you progress further, you realize a lot of these memories are taken from the same couple of scenes. I'm getting ahead of myself, but the previous games, even if they weren't actually, felt way bigger in scale. And I feel like this game could have used at least one more year in the oven. Okay, back on track now. We get a healer tutorial playing as Uni, get chased right back, then awkwardly switch to Mio and get a defender tutorial. Should've just switched us right over to Mio, man. Oh, Mio, man. Maybe she and Senna get in some trouble and we learn all about healing from Taion, then maybe ease the player into the switching mechanic with only 3 characters present before going all out with the full 6, Just a thought! We eventually all meet back up and swap campfire stories, and it's really great and heartfelt if you can forget our pursuers are just a few hundred metries away. But it's okay, because I love them all. So fucking much. Let's get my surface level thoughts on each of them out of the way right now, because I've really been itching to. How about we start with our 2 pseudo-members, the top-build heroes, our common variety Nopon companions. Riku, played in English by Taryn Callender, sports a truly hideous design. You would never suspect that behind this hard-on-the-eyes guise lay such a radiant, sagacious soul. A stout-hearted well of wisdom and integrity, this pawn. Someone you can count on to have your back at all times without question. Living proof that you can be old, grizzled, and intelligent without also being a pathetic nihilist. This little gigachad has seen it all, but he's still kicking. He can still have fun, make new friends, and stand up for what's right. Is he also a master deceiver whose centuries-long occupation contributed to the deaths and suffering of generations of Agnians? Yes, but come on! Look at how huggable he is! The world's a kinder, safer, not to mention wackier place with him in it. This is not a criticism of the storytelling, by the way. I do think it's genuinely cool. He makes this morally dubious commitment for what he perceives as an eventual greater good. It's neat. Manana, played in English by Grace Safe, is the beating heart and soul of the party. She's here to learn all the world's recipes, take care of you, and dance. The every pawn of the group, I'd say. Someone who's very easy to connect with. Her being just a regular-ass person gives you a whole-ass appreciation for the quiet courage she exhibits throughout the journey. She ain't a born fighter, but she bishy bashes and sends dudes packing regardless. Gives me Sasha Browse vibes. Loud and outgoing most of the time, but still and focused when things get serious. I think the only crack we see in her surprisingly durable armor was her aversion to the thunderbolt and lightning very, very frightening me in the early game. Perfectly excusable, wouldn't even count it as a blemish. We love our cookie pawn caretaker. In my opinion, Safe elevates the character to heights beyond her Japanese counterpart. Now for our children. Senna, played in English by Rebecca LaChance, is first and foremost the girl with the gall. A powerful, vivacious spirit, she knows that's what she is, and yet her pervasive doubt often muddies the complete picture. Senna's anxious to find her place in this cruel world and looks silently to her friends, Mio most of all, for guidance. That would all be wonderful if it weren't for that nasty silently part. The girl's dang hard on herself, but she finds it in her to open up more and more as things go on. Bless her friends, though. They're always there for her when she needs them. Love her to pieces, and I don't believe the hero quest did her dirty like so many people like to claim. Stick around for my thoughts on that. Lance, played in English by Jack Bardo, is the greatest meathead character I've ever experienced. Also a true naturist? In my media? There ain't no way! We take our wins where we can get 'em, Tsumugu. I'm sorry. My boy Lance is complex, and not a Rhine clone like so many people label him as for some reason. What are their commonalities? They big, they tank, they emotional, they sleep through classes, that's about it. You could say they're both loyal, but I'd argue in vastly different ways. I would describe Ryan as a somewhat moody golden retriever and Lance as a rather peppy house cat. Ryan's highest priority is protecting him and his own, whereas Lance has a bit more shit to sort through before he can make that sort of unconditional commitment. Lance's got trauma, and his journey is all about coming to terms with it and growing into a better person. He has some of my favorite interactions with each of the party members. It's all real great stuff. I ship him with Fiona. Senna's his very good friend. I want to give him a big meaty hug and laugh together over brewskis. In my opinion, Bardo elevates the character to heights beyond his Japanese counterpart. In fact, his performance is easily my favorite of the whole main party, probably a top 3 performance for the whole game, honestly. Tyon, played in English by Olivier Huband, is the greatest nerd character I've ever experienced. Everyone loves Tyon, do I even need to explain? Universally lovable character traits this Poindexter's got. Starts off distant and set in his ways, but grows into a dang emotionally intelligent rock of a man. I mean, look at those biceps! Good small boy grows bigger physically and emotionally. Like, that's all I really need to say. He's tried and true. Still peeved he and Uni didn't kiss. You're just gonna leave my boy like that? What the fuck? Speaking of, Uni, played in English by Kitty Archer, is the greatest character I've ever experienced. People always say, man, I wish so-and-so character was real, and until I played this game, I've never been able to fully connect to that sentiment. Several of my very favorite characters have elements of unreality. That's not something a person would do in real life. Come on, they just wouldn't translate properly if they were dragged into the real world, and so on. And most actually realistic characters have a whole bunch of shit wrong with them, and I'd never want to associate. But Uni, let me tell you about this fully realized, healthy human person who still has plenty of room to grow. She's amazing, and I connect with her in pretty much every way. She rocks 2 of my 3 favorite colors, green and black, the third being pink. I know black isn't a real color, but to us monkey brains, for all intents and purposes, it might as well be. She's drawn to a good leather jacket, she loves beaches and hates the cold, she manspreads any chance she gets, sits in the exact fucking poses I tend to, she's chill with the human body. She's a shithead, but wears her vulnerability on her sleeve. She loves her friends almost as much as she loves herself. She has strong convictions, knows what the fuck she believes, is as she does. I want to have a brewski with her and sincerely ask how she's able to sleep with those head wings. It goes without saying, but Archer elevates the character to heights beyond her Japanese counterpart. A bus through and through. Mio, played in English by Amy Fionn Edwards, and Noah, played in English by Harry McIntyre. Where to even begin? Aspirational doesn't come close to covering it. They're so goddamn fallible, and yet we revere them all the same. This is the stuff real protagonists are made of. Striking a near-perfect balance between your average messy human being and exceptionally upstanding hero. Mio does not do things by halves. She comes out swinging right off the bat, a flaming hatred in her eyes, but once she's made to comprehend Noah's lived experience, all that energy is instead channeled into coming to terms with these sudden, weighty revelations. She's confronted with an undeniable truth, and so she doesn't deny it. She chooses to course-correct her life's rigidly set trajectory with only 3 months left on the clock. She runs ever forward, no more looking back. That's not to say it's easy for her, far from it. There's strife and hardship around every corner, reopened wounds, but also pleasure, peace, liberation, education, and enjoyment like nothing these born and bred killing machines have ever experienced. Through immense perseverance, Mio comes to love her enemy. And Noah is nothing if not highly receptive to new modes of thought. Naturally inquisitive, perceptive, and pragmatic, our MC excels at uniting disparate creeds under a shared banner, creating interpersonal common ground. He's a leader in every sense of the word. Quite wizened on one hand, though wide-eyed and green on the other. He's new to this whole revolutionary shtick. New even to talking to people like people and not soldiers. His work as an officer serves as an open-ended question to himself and his world. What is our purpose? What is the meaning of life? Why do they smile? It is through his journey, through coming to understand the true nature of people and his surroundings, that he receives his answer. I believe Edwards elevates her character to heights slightly beyond her Japanese counterpart. McIntyre and Ryohei Arai are pretty much exactly neck and neck in my view, as both Noah and En. McIntyre really taps into Noah's humanity, whereas Arai more so explores his philosophical side. McIntyre's En in the base game is overall great, though I found he sometimes veered a bit too far into hammy territory for my taste. Not so at all in Future Redeemed though, plays him perfectly grounded. You can 100% buy that this guy is a red-pilled Noah. Arai's En is great in both. Whew! Let's move on to our inaugural Big Plains area. It's lovely, but pretty much the same size as the Azana Plains. You've got this great Gower Plain Gormott adjacent Hiramatsu track blasting, but the place is over and done with in a snap. The extra bit you can explore once you learn to climb purples ain't really anything to write home about either. It was a bit of a deflating moment for me when I got the climby field skill and made my way back over there, cause I thought the Colony 9 Ferronis and surrounding area was a completely new location as I was first laying eyes on it from this vantage point. Only to realize the world ain't quite as vast as I'd hoped. Makes thematic sense that Ionios is a big ol' Ouroboros, just doesn't jive with me on the gameplay front. Here comes Shill Shill. Let's talk about the value of money and accessories in this game. Sorry, I was supposed to be saying something. You basically, yeah, you have infinite money, and there are so many fucking accessories that it borders on parody. Most of them useless. Nearly all of them outpaced by a superior accessory mere hours after acquisition. Just like real life! No sorting system comprehensible by humans could possibly remedy all of this. 2 had the same problem as well, the accessory problem, not so much the money problem. 1 had neither of these problems. Maybe most gems were useless, but at least they weren't forced into your inventory at every turn. You actively decided whether or not you wanted to make or harvest them. The thing I'm most hung up on, though, is the lack of menu music while shopping. Don't pussy out! Double down on your atmosphere-destroying decisions! Come on! Don't tease me with what could have been! It just lowers the background music in the mix. Yeah. So, Aegis Wilderness is a pretty great location. Things finally opening up a little with some optional zones on either side. The music is masterful, and I'm tired of saying that, so assume now that every track in this game I love, because I do. No, seriously, legitimately, there is not a single one, not a one, I don't absolutely adore. Something I cannot say for the previous 2 games. Some of the MIDI cutscene tracks in 1 really could have benefited from an update in DE, and I feel like Ace were spread a bit thin for 2's soundtrack, leading to some samey subpar for Xenoblade sounding tunes. Silvercoat Ethel, the heroes, the consoles, the combat, quests, and affinity. What do I think? Ethel is the commander of the Keves Colony 4, an inspiration to our party and a crucial piece of the early game puzzle. Through her, we acquaint ourselves with the strength, gumption, and loyalty of the average soldier, the dangers and follies of our enemies, the consuls, and the cool factor of our allies, the heroes. You see, Colony 4 used to be a prestigious silver-ranked outfit, but was recently demoted to the lowest of the low, dirt rank, all because their leader made a radical decision. To spare the life of her sworn enemy. This guy, who's totally a teenager. They stick with her, though, come hell or high water. A soldier is, after all, loyal to their commanding officer above all others, not so much to the entity who would jerk around said commanding officer. The consuls, or Mobius, run this world. They profit off this perpetual state of war and even get off on it. Just like real life! Step out of line even 1 iota, and you'll be met with some twisted, inane punishment. Possession seems to be a favorite of theirs. Once we kick the shit out of the bitch holding Ethel and co-hostage, we realize for the first time just how out of place we are. This whole sequence of events is fantastic. Reinforces that what we're undertaking as a party is truly unprecedented. We feel the evil eyes on us and are completely understanding of why they're trained our way, which makes it all the more impactful when people eventually come to see past our otherness, visualize even vaguely the possibility of a world unlike this one. Ethel unquestioningly lends us her support to that end. How does Xenoblade 3 play in comparison to its older siblings? Well, I can say for certain that movement is the best it's ever been. Entering combat is seamless, doesn't slow you down at all, and it just plain feels good. The game feel is immaculate. When you do a good, you receive some nice beefy feedback. When you do a whoops, the lack of feedback urges you to try again without feeling the least bit discouraging. Stunning animations across the board, numbers and icons and flashing shit vie for your attention at all times, and yet somehow you always know exactly where you are and when to execute your arts. It becomes second nature after a while. If you get bored of one character's playstyle, just switch it up on the fly and experiment with someone else. The AI ain't pulling their weight? Well, go on and make them. Fusion arts are sweet, as are the respective recharge conditions for Kevesi and Agnian arts. How these systems interact with the Ouroboros mechanic feels tight. The dash is a much appreciated addition. Quality of life changes all around. Everything flows together in brilliant concert and feels perfectly balanced. Except for the party gauge, but oh, we'll get to you. Also don't love how there are only like 3 regular art icons. Like, seriously? It's boring as hell, dude. Ethel, heroes, they're fun and cool to have around, but it's a bit of a shame they're non-playable outside of chain attacks. Now hear me out. They definitely should be distinct from the Ouroboros members, but how do we achieve that? Well, maybe make their equipment unique, exclusive to them, super high-end stuff that evolves as they level, but allow us to customize their gems as we would the rest of the party. You can make their D-pad arts amazing and exclusive as well, while obviously barring them from learning other classes' tricks, since they aren't Ouroboros. All their arts, with the exception of the city folk, would of course have to be uniform, Kevesi or Agnian depending. Maybe give him a second talent art or a similar function on the left side to replace Ouroboros, I don't know. Just a novice's musings. What we got in the end I think is perfectly fine, though I do have some qualms about the way the classes are inherited. Just let everyone play with every class from the moment we unlock that class's hero. Feels a bit like homework the way they got things set up here. Like a literature class. Finish these chapters by this date or you're shit. Bitch, you've just sullied whatever enjoyment I may have had with this book. Now that I know its work, I'm just gonna read the spark notes out of spite. Oh, what's that? You're giving me an A anyway because I'm a fantastic writer? Thank you, I thought so. Keep the master art and skill requirements in place, that's great, but please don't force me to use a class just so everyone else can use it. We end up cycling through them like disposable plastics for most of the game because there's always another one right around the corner that's gotta be used by whatever character so someone else can use it, then switch to said someone else and make it so the rest of these mutters can use it, lather, rinse, repeat for, again, most of the game. If everyone had easy access, we'd reach level 10 much quicker on every class. Then, it won't feel like a waste to stay on one you like if the majority of the classes are likewise maxed. I know some people feel differently, but I don't much care for being coerced into the optimal playstyle. You know, I think Monolith must have felt the same way, but went about it all wrong. They probably feared players wouldn't experiment with all the classes they painstakingly designed if they didn't strong-arm them into using them. I assure you, not all players need to be enticed by a dangling carrot to have fun. Sometimes the design speaks for itself, as it ought to have here in your game. See Final Fantasy V, just Control-C that shit and you're golden. Quests and Affinity. Probably the best iterations of these systems in the series yet. The former's more streamlined than ever, the latter contains more interesting characters and relationships than ever. I like that there's a new round of quests seemingly every chapter. Makes things feel alive. These are people we want to save, a community we feel compelled to strengthen. And you're included in that too, Jeremy. You know what? I even enjoy the quests where you have to walk with someone, because they allow you to take a breather and soak in the stunning world around you. Is what I would have said if the characters didn't constantly jiggle and vibrate while walking. Every time there was a patch, I waited with bated breath for a chance to walk, just to see if this time, finally, they correctly implemented the most baseline of functions. One of them seemed to smooth it out like a little bit, but it's still way more janky than I think it should be. Enough to ruin the whole game, the whole experience? Not quite, but you're playing with fire here, Monolith. And while we're on the subject of game-ruining nitpicks,
Why on Klaus's green earth does the Keves colony theme not replace itself with soldiers peeing when a Kevesi colony reaches max affinity? Give me an Agnian equivalent too, what are you doing? Not Sophronia Village, a triumphant arrangement, you know what I mean. And while you're at it, please, for the love of Galea, replace the doom and gloom of Keves Castle's area theme with Fort Ovirbis once Melia liberates the castle, you dang fools! You've tainted the connective tissue binding Melia's beautiful ascension quest!
oh, and that's the angriest I will get at this game. That latter criticism addresses either a camel's back-breaking oversight or just an instance of gross unprofessionalism, and I don't know what's worse. That omission of a musical shift for the castle is legitimately one of the worst aspects of this game for me, but it's been addressed, and I will never speak of it again for the duration of this video. Broliaris and Ethel impart some intriguing exposition and send us on our way. The latter leaves our party indefinitely as she's got some adulting to do. The rest of Foreignus is now open to us. I consider this region to be the peak of Xenoblade 3's world design. Not aesthetically, but purely in terms of exploration. Cadencia is an overcorrection. At this juncture, we have immediate access to Aegis Wilderness, Elais Highway, Danaw Desert, and Ribby Flats, itself connected to Raybell Tableland. Taken together, they comprise the cozy and nostalgic feeling Foreignus region. To explain why these places synergize so well for me, I will now do my best to articulate why the locales of Xenoblade 1 and 2 resonated so fundamentally. Depth. That's the key word here. You take a look at Colony 9, Bionis Leg, Valak Mountain, Gormott, Uriah, Yggdrasil itself, you will find beautiful, meticulously crafted, intricately layered areas to get lost in for hours on end. Not empty fields like you see in open world games, nor empty corridors like you see in... well, that joke's been done to death. Space that has meaning. You ever build a cute little fort as a child? It's sleep overnight and you have a bunch of blankets and shit lying around. You make something that feels otherworldly, atmospheric, just plain cool. That's these. Those are the Xenoblade Chronicles. Wherever you set foot, there's something interesting to look at. Fun, intricate caves Shigeru Miyamoto would be proud of abound. There are barely 2 fun, intricate caves in Xenoblade 3, and a decent one in Future Redeemed. The rest are all tiny, featureless, and functionally identical, even the ones within my beloved Foreignus region. Take a step outside, however, and it's a different story altogether. Sleepover forts. See, where Aetia just feels like a series of Gormati forests, and Pentalus disproportionately prioritizes verticality, and Cadencia is basically the level design equivalent of Wide Putin, Foreignus gathers up the positive aspects of all these extremes and synthesizes a delectable Xenoblade area smorgasbord out of them. Now, Aegis Wilderness, though a tad sparse on things to actually interact with, is nice and wide like the base of Tantal. Danaw Desert is Satoral Marsh-like in its compact density. There's depth and a focus on verticality here without sacrificing width. Ribby Flats gives me Torna vibes with its simplistic beauty and openness. Elais Highway is perhaps a bit corridor-like, but of course wins my heart over with everything else about it. Also, one linear area in a region full of sandboxes is a nice pacebreaker. And finally, Raybell Tableland is host to a number of branching paths similar in scope to the Fallen Arm. I feel perfectly at home in these places. And so do the 2 new heroes who jump our asses, but again, I'll give you the skinny on all these colorful weirdos in a later segment. Speaking of colorful weirdos, our Cabal chilling in the theater. And by colorful, I mean they're full of choices pertaining to color. I know you're related to Logos' core and all, but there's simply too much purple. I can't take you seriously. This is some Looney Tunes Mickey Mouse bad guy coding here. Find a more appealing aesthetic for your endgame dungeon like you've done before and since. Sorry. They're watching our party admire the wildlife. I'm going to assume that the consoles suppressed all information pertaining to the cycle of life because there's no way not one soldier for the past millennium came across an example of reproduction in animals. No way no one shared knowledge like that or documented it. That's asking me to swallow several inches worth, and I refuse to do that, so I won't. Why do you make me love these creatures as animals and then force me to execute them as monsters, bearing witness to hyper-detailed animations of them in the throes of excruciating pain?
Why, Monolith? Everyone who lives in this world has a life, so it shouldn't be threatened by anyone, much? It physically hurts me to kill Armus and Anludes and the like, so I abstained from 100%ing Future Redeemed. This is a problem with all Xenoblade, but I don't plan on making videos on the first two anytime soon, so I figured I'd throw this in here. Make it so that all enemies we're able to kill are hostile by nature, then I'll be able to stomach your gameplay loop a lot easier. I feel bad enough for consuming meat in real life. So this game doesn't technically have heart-to-hearts like the previous ones, though at the same time, it has the best heart-to-hearts in the whole series. These scenes were a huge contributor to why Xenoblade 3's cast rapidly became my favorite in all RPGs. They allow every combination of member, and even some heroes, to have some truly insightful, meaningful conversations, in contrast to the heartfelt, though somewhat frivolous ones 1 and 2 boasted. That's not me throwing shade, I'll always love these, but come on. You'd be hard-pressed to find me a genuinely compelling interaction between, say, Sharla and Melia or Morag and Pandoria. In 3, the weakest dynamic is between Noah and Senna, but I feel there's just enough there to have me believe they'd take a bullet for one another. And end of the day, that's all I really need to love a game's party members. And also, while there's no real scene between Senna and Uni, this speaks far louder than any words ever could. The Ouroboros brats have been absolutely wonderful up to this point in the game, but the precise moment that cemented my undying devotion to these characters occurred here. Uni is one of very few soldiers carrying residual memories of their previous lives. We saw a hint of this earlier when good old DJ first showed their ugly mug, but only upon seeing her own lifeless husk does Uni begin to grasp the terrifying magnitude of a trauma she never even knew she bore. Not yet fully able to comprehend that which was just unearthed, she keeps it to herself, though Taion happens to spot the jitters. Later that night, around the campfire, our boy reaches out and lends an ear. Here, why don't I just play the scene for you?
Oh, thank you. Smells good.
Obviously, it's a serious anemone. A rare flower from the Orion Mountains, crushed and extracted.
Wow, look at you. Sounds like a hobby.
And a practical one at that.
Yeah.
Like I said, practical. Glad it worked.
Oh. You noticed?
I did. Mine do that too.
Huh?
I put down my weapon, look around at my companions and feel relief. Thinking, finally, another day down. Then I think of tomorrow and the tremors are back. Will I see the same faces when I wake? Will I even be around to see them? Huh.
Easier with the mark, I suppose. You know when it's coming. But when you're in a scrap...
Can you really speak for them, though? For someone nearing the end?
Huh?
Because I couldn't tell you. All we can possibly do is wonder what it's like. What can one feel? Contentment, perhaps? Or sheer horror?
I'd really hope it's not fear.
Me too. That's just it.
Nothing further needs to be said about these two, does it? There's a bounty of intimate exchanges just like this spread throughout the entire game, and they're honestly my favorite aspect of this whole package. Excluding the music, of course, and we'll get to you. The only thing I even remotely find lacking in this scene is a universal hiccup here, and that's the lack of sound effects for some stock animations. Takes you out of some moments that would otherwise be quite riveting. The exact opposite problem of Xenoblade 2's Blade Awakenings. Yeesh! En route to Taion's former colony Lambda, we pass through the Orion Mountains, the compelling cave of this title. It's beautiful because, of course it is. Even in disrepair, Uriah remains splendiferous. Riku and Manana have their hero moment, and we're funneled out into some delectable Agni and Ouroboros action. The reputable Commander Isard and company have been dancing to the tune of one Consul J. J as in Yoran, of course, the Kevesi crew's long-dead Osana Najimi. How is this possible? Well, stay tuned and find the heck out! I think this moment is placed in the story at a unique yet wonderfully perfect time. Normally what we arbitrarily consider an act in a story would conclude with a moment of emotional resonance no matter how small. We wind things down, then gradually crank them back up again. With Xenoblade, this ebb and flow has always felt somewhat unpredictable, and that's because, like many Japanese stories, these games use a 4-act structure as opposed to the 3 acts we're so accustomed to in the West. Xenoblade 1. Act 1 is prologue to unfinished battle. Act 2, Satoru Marsh to the confrontation at Prison Island. Act 3, aftermath of Prison Island to the awakening of the Mechonis. Act 4, awakening of the Mechonis to the credits. Xenoblade 2. Act 1 is the beginning to the death of Vandam. Act 2, Mithra's here now to departing Leftheria. Act 3, arrival in Indal to the acquiring of the 3rd Aegis Sword. Act 4, Cliffs of Moratha to the credits. Xenoblade 3. Act 1 is the beginning to carrying the weight of life. Act 2 is Tyon's flashback to carrying the weight of life. Hi, future me here. No, it's the whole evacuation of Keves Castle is actually what should be considered the end of Act 2. Like, it matters. It's the fucking stupidest part of this video anyway. But at the time of writing and also recording, it sounded way punchier to say carrying the weight of life twice back to back. You know how it is. Okay, as you were. That's what makes this reveal so damn cool, is because it's an emotional climax in the middle of an act. It's framed as the end of a chapter, but its place in the wider story nonetheless gives off a compelling vibe. Act 3,
Senna's flashback.
to the liberation of Agnes Castle. Act 4, Mio deciding on a hairstyle to the credits. Doesn't that just feel cool? I made it all up, but everything about fiction is made up. Have I managed to get any sort of point across at all? I don't know, but I love this reveal. When the Mobius battle theme kicks in as Little Man demands we feel his elation, I tasted that precise flavor of chills I only get from a Xenoblade. Shit's raw as hell, dude. I will continue to gush about this battle and everything following it, but now that Ouroboros orders have been introduced, allow me to address the number one problem I have with this game. Not the core mechanics of chain attacks, but everything else about them. Number 1, they're far, far, far too easy to earn. Unlike the other titles, this party gauge serves no other purpose other than to perform chain attacks. It was an ultra-compelling push and pull risk versus reward dynamic in the other games, where you may have had a full party gauge, but would hold off on unleashing that chain attack just in case party members died, or in case you wanted to throw out a specific art for free when a vision was in play. Here, the only reason not to use a chain attack when the party gauge is full is because you'll be expending the real-world resource of time. Which brings me to number 2. For how often they occur, they take way too much time to execute. You're unable to skip or fast forward the chain order animations. The individual ones last approximately 7 seconds, the Ouroboros ones last approximately 20. Initiating a chain attack takes about 4 seconds. So let's lowball things and say for every chain attack going forward, we do the standard 3 turns plus hero chain plus Ouroboros round. No Fiona nonsense. We'll be generous here and allocate 1 chain attack for every unique monster and 2 for every boss fight. I'll be counting Consul J and every mandatory boss fight going forward, none of the previous ones. Not even taking elites into account. Fights with multiple boss enemies will be counted as a single boss. Varying phases will be counted separately. We'll count half of the game's total unique monsters and do the same for Hero Quest bosses, since with those there's some overlap with the main story. Let's average out the time spent selecting individual orders and subsequent commands, as well as viewing a turn's worth of reactivations, to 45 seconds. And hey, I'll throw in one final bone and not even count the time incurred glancing the results screen because of how often the game sees fit to cut its display and fanfare off at the knees whenever you've just overkilled a story battle. This leaves us with an everyday chain attack length of 277 seconds. That's just over 4.5 minutes. Multiplying that with the 64 hypothetical initiations during story bosses, Hero Quests 56, and Unique Monsters 70, that leaves us with 52,630 seconds. Which means the average thorough player who receives no jollies from pulling out prematurely will spend at a minimum 14 hours, 37 minutes, and 10 seconds chain attacking it up. That's almost 2 workdays. You can beat whole games in that time, or fucking take a lover or something. Hell, you could watch an entire-ass Lord of the Rings, or whatever it is the popular kids go for, in the over 2 hours and 40 minutes you'll spend unengaged just watching the same animations over and over again. My first playthrough took me almost exactly 140 hours, excluding postgame. This suggests I spent a little over 10% of my entire time with this game, trapped in a Eurobeat dance pop rock new disco reverberant time loop fever dream. Number 3. I like to call this the Persona 2 effect, simply because that game is the first time I came across such a dramatic example of this phenomenon. Now, the vibes and characters of Persona 2 are immaculate. Loved every second of it I played, until the second major boss fight. I tried on every difficulty level, but still had the same problem. I wasn't being challenged to think strategically, and yet the motherfucker wouldn't die. I then dropped the game because it was the very first time I ever nodded off while actively pressing buttons on a controller. The second time would be while playing good old Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I played on hard, but again, noticed this problem applying to all levels of difficulty. The bosses are absolute damage sponges, and the only way to expedite their executions is by chain attacking. However, once you find that winning strategy, in the words of every Ardanian soldier, you're done! Future Redeemed improved on this aspect alone, but here, you have zero incentive to try anything new once you've found the strategy. Other than boredom, I guess, or if the enemy comes packaged with a gimmick that voids your strategy, but that latter example is few and far between if it's even really a thing at all. Now, granted, deleting an entire health bar with one mighty smash does rank among the most satisfying feelings I've ever experienced upon this mortal coil, but, you know, variety is the spice of life. I love ramen, but you won't catch me eating it for every single meal. During every chain attack, especially in the latter half of the game, I just feel like I'm spinning my damn wheels. Could be doing literally anything else. Taking a lover, for example. This monotony is certainly not helped by the big one. You already know. Number 4. The unchanging music.
Playtime's over! Let's change it up! That's the way!
It's a stellar track. Again, I love everything on this soundtrack, but same problem as the menu, it wears thin real quick. No option to turn it off, no option to have it not override dramatic boss music. Did I ever truly hear End's battle theme before the soundtrack came out? No. Because I was too busy dogging on his launched ass while this fucking Eurobeat dance pop rock new disco neoclassical Kenji Hiramatsu masterpiece erased all the tension. When End's battle theme played during the cutscenes of Future Redeemed, I straight up thought it was a new track.
How embarrassing.
Well, yeah, it was cool when, after not playing for the whole final boss, it proudly announced itself during our last chain attack, and that's a great moment, but at what cost? There was a glitch that happened when I was doing some of the endgame quests in gloomy-ass Keves Castle, where I initiated a chain attack, and the music didn't change. I can't tell you how bitterly, transcendently euphoric that moment was. It was like I was playing 1 and 2 all over again, like I was glimpsing an alternate timeline. I'm telling you, if there was no chain attack theme, I may not have nodded off while playing this game. Then I'm pretty sure after the battle music reached its looping point, our unwanted friend came back out to play, and I truly learned to value life's fleeting moments of happiness.
Leave it to uni! It continues! Take this! How about something like this?
Okay, that's that vented about. Chain attacks were super fun to use in this fight, because this was a legitimately challenging encounter. In fact, because I stubbornly refused to ever level up with bonus EXP for the duration of the main story, this ended up being where the difficulty peaked for me. Got at least 5 game overs, and I was loving it. Wish there could have been more instances of this, but I'll accept it. Lil J pieces out, and we're left with a whole mountain of enticing questions. Seems he forgot to turn his ominous voice filter back on in the dub following his dramatic face reveal.
Better be prepared for the consequences.
Really? I was only interested in putting in an appearance.
We liberate Colony Lambda and in so doing meet the real Iserd, an honest, kind, emotionally intelligent workaholic insomniac. Noah and Mio repent for the act of killing puppets we believe to be flesh and blood humans, Tyon and Uni have yet another lovely conversation, and we follow Lance for a bit as he struggles to accept Yoren's reemergence. The boy sacrificed himself for Lance not long after the latter laid on some not-so-constructive admonishment, and that's left him understandably traumatized. When I say the Kevesi trio are my favorite two guys, one gal dynamic in all of fiction, I always think back to these brief, poignant exchanges. So often, these types of stories present friendship as either a superpower or something destined to break down in some way. You can feel the author's hand designating friends without much nuance. Xenoblade does this too. Hell, this Xenoblade does a bit toward the end, but right here we get reality. They love each other unconditionally. Therefore, they must face one another down during such turbulent times. This does zero damage to their bond, nor does it even necessarily strengthen it. It's just how it is. And I love that more than I'm capable of expressing. Man, if Fornus is my favorite designed region in terms of gameplay, Pentalus certainly takes the cake for best aesthetics. When I was just roaming around Greatcoat Falls, taking in the sights, and that real Kyoto moment happens in the music,
Let me just fix this.
oh, that's what it's all about. You can feel it just washing over you. We're given a peek at more cryptic Mobius machinations and are acquainted with an imprisoned present-day Kamuravi, Ethel's Agnian rival. Speaking of, Ethel and Broliaris are really going through it. These two incels blow some shit up and threaten to do the same to Colony 4. Not cool. I'm really intrigued as to what could have pushed Melia and Nia to such depravity. Hope it's compelling. Great scenes, nothing new there. Wait, Kitty Archer plays Uni and not this character? I think I want to talk about Mobius and conflict, seeing as how this chapter is where the intrigue surrounding both of those is at its most palpable for me. In the weeks leading up to this game's launch, I did the faux pas. Set my expectations sky high. I believed, based on all the promotional material, that 3 would end up my favorite of the series. In no small part due to the apparent darkness and profundity of the conflict, Mobius being the poster children for this notion. Reality is often cruel, though, and taken as a whole, the story of Mobius pales in comparison to those of Egil and Amalthus, and doesn't even belong in the same conversation as Torna. But you love D! Yeah, that doesn't invalidate what I just said. Individually, I like him quite a bit. The idea of former Kevesi and Agnian soldiers being granted absolute dominion over their erstwhile comrades in arms is compelling, chilling, thematically resonant, and informs their callous, sadistic, and I'm just gonna say it, capitalistic nature. After being made to bear witness to the utter futility of their past lives, they now know this world is, in a sense, absurdly meaningless. So why not have a little fun now that we're on the other side? They'll all be reborn none the wiser anyway. Most of these mobs have interesting personalities and approaches to managing their respective colonies. It's great side quest material, but that's just it. What of their impact on the main story? We're teased about origin here and myriad other plot points there in delightful fashion, but I don't know, similar to how I felt the promise of comprehensive backstory for the main cast went unfulfilled, there's little to look forward to with the villains past a certain point, even though it feels like there should be a lot more. Zed is performed well and says pretty words in both English and Japanese, but that alone does not an effective big bad make. I guess to put it a bit more broadly, from an extremely zoomed out top-down perspective, taking the whole narrative into account, the only super interesting bullet points to arise from the main conflict are the mysteries of Ionios' creation, the story of Yoren, the story of, quote, Noah and Mio, which we'll get to, and the whole cycle of rebirth. It seemed like more was on the table, but I didn't get to eat any of it. Compare with the other entries. The entwined stories of Shulk, the Monado, and Zanza. Alvis as a character. The entwined stories of the Telethia and High Entia. The entwined stories of Fiora and Maineth, the very histories of the Bionis and Mechonis themselves. These are properly dramatic threads and subjectively feel a tad more all-encompassing in scale, which I shouldn't have to tell you, greatly benefits a game in the style of Xenoblade. The story of the World Tree and Elysium, the conflicts born of Nopon, the story of Adam and the Aegis, the nature of blades, titans, flesh-eaters, and blade-eaters, politics, seriously good political drama, man. The story of Torna, past and present, the story of Amalthus, the story of a previous humanity and their hubris, the story of the architect himself. Similar elements to these in 3 are usually much quicker to resolve, leaving them feeling undercooked. Let's put it this way, by the time I made it to Erythia Sea, I sincerely believed I had to be around halfway through the story. I was 90 hours in at that point, so that gut feeling had me immensely excited. In actuality, though, I was a little over 2/3 of the way through. This could all be a result of my inflated expectations, but it doesn't change how I feel. The city felt like Alchemoth, but in reality it was Agniratha. And sure, the game offsets this lack of sweeping plot focus with other amazing nitty-gritty additions, as I've said, most of that 90 hours accrued by not doing the main quest after all, but can you really have your cake if you don't also eat it too? In the immortal words of Freddie Mercury, I want it all! It's greedy and unrealistic to be sure, but I'd prefer if you didn't Pokemon me and take away nice things. More on missed potential following the peak. Mac the Wildwood is real nice to look at, and I would totally sleep here if it was at all safe. Okay, I'll stop saying great scenes or whatever from now on, just assume, like with the music, that I love every single interaction that takes place unless stated otherwise. Though I'll be sure to draw special attention to the really noteworthy ones, of course. We have our Death Star infiltration plan for Keves Castle. Cute, but I wish it actually felt more like an infiltration in practice. A big gripe I have with all of Xenoblade is the lack of variation in puzzle solving. Usually just amounts to flick a switch here, follow a waypoint there. The most egregious thing in Future Redeemed, for example, was that quest where you're supposed to seek out various locations based on corresponding riddles, but they're all just marked on the map for you? Like, why did you even bother, man? Enough about that, though. Here comes one of those special noteworthy scenes. Noah's being a real fella here and thinking only of the looming task at hand, not sparing any deeper thoughts for Mio's whole 1 month to live conundrum. They have that fight every couple's supposed to have to remain steady going, and then make up in beautiful fashion the next morning. A ridiculously powerful moment for these protags, and probably the most meaningful among the boy-girl leads of this series up to this point. Beautifully staged, acted, motion captured, with everyone else going about their business in the background, respectful of what's taking place between the duo. Have a taste.
Sorry about last night. I was just feeling the pressure.
I should be sorry. I didn't realize. It must be tough for you, I'm sure.
This, belonged to a friend. We served in the same colony. She was my officer partner. Miyabi was her name.
So your officers sometimes work in pairs?
Yeah. You know, I was surprised when you joined in and played alongside me back then. Anyway, one day there was an experiment, and she told me to keep on living. To live life in her stead, to fight on. But the stupid thing is, I was the one who was older than she was.
Now I see. That was...
Say, wanna exchange flutes?
What? But isn't that...
I guess it's a little too icky.
No. I don't care about that. I'm just trying
I
to
just
say...
like it to be used a little longer. To make up for the time me Abby lost. You'll still be around after me.
Mio. I get it. All right, it's a trade. You should know. Mine's seen better days too.
Don't worry. I don't really mind either.
Thank you for the chat. I'm kind of surprised.
Surprised?
Even after interlinking, there's still things I don't know about you.
Well, of course. How can you when there are things I don't understand myself? You're not going to pick up on everything.
Gotta put it into words first.
Yeah, but it doesn't always work, even then.
Like last night.
Oh, that. That was me being selfish. But now, I feel like we're starting to get on the same wavelength.
Maybe interlinking just helped that along. To bring us a little closer together.
Maybe, yeah. That might just be it.
I love this game, believe it or not. Act 2, as I view it, ends with this long-time-coming confrontation that serves to strengthen the party's solidarity and conviction like never before. Gold Star. We meet the best acted character in the dub, who just so happens to fully be my type of woman, which I swear is unrelated to my armchair appraisal of her vocal performance. I wouldn't have brought it up if they were related. Ashira's my freaky behind closed doors type. Uni's my do laundry and taxes with type. That is related in part to why I love Uni so much. How apropos that they're soulmates. I killed a bunch of capybaras here and regretted it for the rest of my life. Uni's great. Have I mentioned I love her? I love Uni. She is perfectly imperfect. Know what else is imperfect? Robot. Evil Melia's a robot. This was a choice. I definitely don't hate this as much as them retconning the pronunciation of her last name to Antiqua, but I definitely don't like it either. It's a bit of an ass pull, I'll be honest. We're drawn in by the prospect of well-established virtuous characters assuming antagonistic roles. Whatever could it mean? What would compel them to sink to such lows, etc.? But no, just robot. The only reason they're modeled off Melia and Nia is for the fans, but do fans really want this? Cheap imitations of their favorite characters doing the evil shtick? There's no appeal if it's not actually them. Like that stupid, I don't even remember what it's called, knockoff of Semi-Perfect Cell in Dragon Ball Superhero. It's marketing material, nothing more. Falls flat. What ain't flat, though, is that ass. And that one. Not that one. We're escorted by the mysterious lost numbers to the long-anticipated Sword March, the elusive city. Was it worth the journey? Mostly yes, a little bit no. I'll get Negative Nancy out of the way first. It's too small. Way too small for a Xenoblade location of such narrative magnitude. Should have shaved off like a third of Erythia-C's girth and pumped it into this environment right here. I'm looking around and thinking, aesthetically it's beautiful, but Colony 9, the starting town from the Wii game, holds a young adult birthday cake's worth of candles to this place's scale and majesty. And yeah, in the story, the city's supposed to be real hidden and out of sight. Who cares? Out of sight and small aren't exactly opposites. I'm being mean. In truth, all was practically forgiven after...
Maternity?
Come.
It's a little person.
one finger. In her palm.
Let me have a turn. What?
Who wants to know how babies are made?
Come.
Enough said. Monica's great, Travis is great, Shania feels like she's got some stuff going on. Plot was really cooking at this point, and I was all the way on board. The characters, meanwhile, got all the way on board this here nightmarish controllin' boat. I'll fess up, despite my whining about its size. Cadencia's a vibe, man. Sea too big, castle too small, yeah, it's still chill to exist in. And is home to Captain Triton, the third best acted character in the dub. Tell us your top 10 of the base game? Why, I'd love to! This game is filled to the brim with excellent performances. These are just my favorites. Doesn't mean all the rest are bad. 10, Manana. 9, Fiona. 8, Uni. 7, Noah. 6, Ethel. 5, Gray. 4, Xeon. 3, Triton. 2, Lance. 1, Ashira. Now include future redeemed performances? Oh, I'm spoiling you all rotten! 10, Gray, 9, N, 8, Xeon, 7, Triton, 6, A, 5, Nicole, 4, Rex, 3, Lance, 2, Alpha, 1, Ashira. Well, now you want me to do the whole bloody series? Well, let's save that for Xenoblade 4, innit? In the meantime, wanna climb to the peak? I think it's time to climb to the peak. Up to Agnes Castle we go, through a boring little cave before we stumble into a prison. I like Legarte, whatever. Despite what it is, it's the prettiest part of Agnes Castle. Here we meet Gondor, but more importantly, Aggie and Augie, but most importantly, Anton. You didn't fucking think I'd forget about Anton, did you? Here, have my favorite Lands and Senna moment.
I'm envious.
Of what?
You, Mimi, Noah, you're all so incredibly confident.
Who's confident? It's all a big act. I don't know about Noah and Mio. But me, though? I'm pathetic.
Huh?
I'm just acting tough. To pump myself up like I'm not a wimp.
You think you're a wimp?
Yeah. I'm a lot like you.
Huh?
But look, what's wrong with that anyway? If we're weak, there's room to grow. Right? Remember the first time you became Ouroboros? You yelled, "Lance, come with me!" Huh? You reached out for the strength you needed.
Oh.
Our friend Jorn, he became Mobius. But that wasn't him. That's his life's purpose? Like Spark it is. So I think maybe I want to figure out the purpose of my own life. I want to get stronger. And if Jorn surpassed me, I'll get even stronger than that.
Oh, wow.
I won't be doing it for the recognition, nor to be liked. I'll do it for myself.
Even if people don't recognize it, right?
We're here. This is us. Let's keep being true to ourselves. What's wrong with that?
Same old Lands.
Same old Senna.
Never stop being you, okay?
Recognizing your own purpose. Huh. You mind if I pinch that mindset?
What you talking about? Friends don't need to ask.
Huh?
Huh? Here's to us, the mighty weaklings.
Yeah.
I want to hug them both. We organize the Great Escape with all the imprisoned citizens and then run into trouble. Turns out Shania's a bit of an incel and has been narking for Mobius the whole time. M steps up to fight us and we're treated to a wonderfully incongruous flute arrangement of the Mobius battle theme. Never once fails to elicit chills, this track. even just listening on the bus or something. Mind control, a contender for my favorite uni line.
Yeah?
You're uni, right?
Better believe it. Can't you tell by my smile?
That's just delicious localization. Also a change to the fight that didn't really make it seem all that different mechanically. Okay, the Mondo sure can do things.
Holy shit, they killed Anton. No one is safe from Monolith's Rancor. No, not Lands and Senate 2. I'm gonna cry. Oh.
Fool me once. And with that, we have arrived at the impetus for me making this video. There are precious few scenes in the visual storytelling medium I catch myself yearning to re-experience with frequency. Until exactly this point in writing my script, I hadn't taken the time to fully interrogate why that is. I would like to do that right now. I enjoy fantasy, the most. I particularly gravitate toward urban fantasy and what I call Dragon Quest style. You know exactly what both of those mean. Venn diagramizing these, several of my all-time favorite worlds reside within the happy medium. Nier, Mother 3, Chrono Trigger, Dragon Ball, One Piece, Kill la Kill, I'd argue, Final Fantasies 7 and 8, Ryuga Gotoku 7 and 8, the novel series that's taking me 10 billion years to write, and of course, Xenoblade, among others. Fantasy all but begs you to imprint on its characters. Japanese fantasy especially, with its often bold and easy-to-read designs. It's effortless for us to grow attached to heavily stylized characters, to hold them up in a similar vein to mascots, memorabilia, modes of self-expression, rather than view them for the three-dimensional, fictionalized accounts of human experience they symbolize beneath the bluster. When we rank our favorite anime characters, we consider first their prominence body pillow resellability, or how much we'd like to hang out with them, or if their voice actors did a good cry or scream, or if they're a generally sad and or hot boy and or girl. How selflessly they serve their story is a secondary concern, if at all, because that's far less glamorous to think about. You put up a Himeno poster because she's an aesthetic, hopefully not because you vibe with the fact she nearly raped an inebriated teenager. She's an excellently written character exactly because of fatal flaws like these, though in acknowledging that, I would likely think twice about plastering her visage on the wall with such brazen paraphernalia's pride. Eren Yeager began serialization as just another bumper sticker. His gradual, unapologetic, violent deviation from this role is exactly what I come to anime in search of. To become more than just a profile picture. See the cast of Fire Emblem Three Houses. When people start calling en masse for Aerith to live, you know something's derailed along the tracks somewhere. All this to say, behind these bars, our colorful cast are left with nothing. Not even all of each other. It is laid bare. The truths at their core, all superfluous amiibo plastics expiring at the door. The best girlified fervor of fools, dreamers, and abject failures dashed on the rocks. They are simply Noah, who had only ever seen the man inside himself. Senna, a great strength swaddled, cradled, and nurtured, placed suddenly in freefall. Lens, party only to what he deems essential, steadily prizing life over survival. Riku, nothing more, nothing less. Manana, the light of generosity inextinguishable. Uni, whose reliably resolute readiness at all times parallels the available depths of her deeply feeling heart. Taion, the once outspoken skeptic taking now to true friendship like white on ever-malleable paper. A radiant confluence of emotions, intentions, desires, and monikers. We are made to watch them, each pair a step away from the other, struggle, languish, rebel, cry out, cry in, accept, reject, reflect, in full view of time's relentless procession. Yasunori Mitsuda creates the greatest art of any decade. Sarah Ueda becomes the conduit for all of the above. Tetsuya Takahashi gives two quick, contented nods, and I remain sat in the dead of night. Not literature, not film, not theater, not clownery, not performance art, none can make one feel quite like this. This precise combination of connection, hurt, remorse, righteous indignation, sincerest appreciation for what is being presented to you, and belonging. They are disparate parts of me, brought to life by thumb and fingertip, seeming to have been as such forever. Their presence is expected, a given, I've run miles in each of their shoes, and therefore, the game has earned doing this to them and to me. It feels effortless, quiet, self-assured, matter-of-fact, as though this were just another scene in a whole winding tapestry of other scenes. Television has to ask with insecure bravado if it has earned its equivalent moments.
Hey, look at this. It's groundbreaking, right? Who do you think's gonna die? What do the cast have to say? Hey, vote now on your mobile devices using the hashtag, please come back next season.
Thank you for what? Thank you for what? Thank you for what? You notice they say that all the time in The Walking Dead? They always say thank you for what? Good question as any. You tell me what I should be thanking you for. All it takes is rule of cool, some unbroken quality time, unabashed sincerity, a couple perfectly placed line reads, and I will be putty in your hands. I like to think witnessing this set piece opened me up a little more, emotionally and spiritually. I well up often, but it's rare for tears to actually stream down my cheeks. They didn't here the first time, but in the time since, the count of such instances no longer fits on my 10 fingers. I did not cry when I beat Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in 2018. I did cry when I beat Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in 2024. I still bawled my eyes out just getting this footage from the event theater, separate from any playthrough. Could this be growing up? I wonder.
I'd like to spend that time with my Noah.
Musical scores can be overbearing, on the nose, hilariously self-important, manipulative. They can also be plain boring, like the overwhelming majority of 21st century Hollywood efforts. Hans Zimmer sure makes great lullabies. This video has been almost entirely an opinion piece, but I feel cosmically justified in claiming as unequivocal fact that Yasunori Mitsuda and Mariam Abounnasr render all Danny Elfman's babbling infants who have not once soiled their pampers in pissing distance of a piano. Homecoming is a filmic piece of music, scored to the exact happenings on screen. Yet plucked from the scene's context and played by itself, it may still move to tears. This tasteful, 7-minute-long roller coaster of leitmotifs and gut punches is the scene. It's all the context you need. Like with this game, I will await first and foremost the music of any subsequent releases headed by any combination of these composers. Just look, listen, feel this.
Mio! Mio!
Pick it up. You're an officer, so send her. What's wrong? Go on, send her. Isn't that your role? Isn't she your Mio?
It's been fun, Noah.
Mia!
What could you even say to that? I have been truly blessed to be able to witness in real time the journey of a team of artists, their climb to the zenith of human achievement. You have left your mark on me. And no matter what else I say about this game, just know that I am a happier, more fulfilled person for having played it. Thank you. Domo arigatou gozaimasu. We're not through with this just yet. Now it's time for Xenogears Abridged. I think Noah might be my favorite protagonist of all time, maybe. If not, he's damn close to it. My thinking's pretty fluid when it comes to that. But this is where I first had that thought. He struggles, attempts with all his mental fortitude to comprehend, endeavors not to understand the specifics, comes out the other end spitting bars as usual. He's not a Cloud Strife, and I appreciate that. Even with Arai's voice sounding more than akin to a younger Sakurai. Cloud's amazing, but this is refreshing, plain and simple. Painfully honest, unabashedly human, visually and philosophically stimulating. Amid this sequence wherein we learn all about how N came to be, there's this.
Strong lungs on that one. Heard him all the way outside.
He looks just like Daddy.
I would have said Mummy.
Our hopes and dreams made into a little person. You'll lead the way to a new world. A new way of life.
Yeah. What about his name? I don't think we ever agreed on one.
It's your call. You're good at naming, aren't you?
No. I don't think that's a good idea. It's probably best if I don't.
I thought you'd say that. Right, I'll do it. Okay? Here's what we'll call him then. I hope that the future will be kinder to you.
Mio. Daddy will have to go soon. All right? But you know, your daddy's and mummy's love, our life, will always be within you. You'll never be alone. Things will get tough. You'll be hurt. You have a whole host of things to go through as you head into the future. A time might come when you'll be on the verge of giving up. But you have to keep going. Make friends. Keep them close to you, always. That's what Daddy and Mummy did. We're with you, now and forever.
If anyone ever asks me to my face why I have placed storytelling and art at the forefront of my pursuits, I will snatch them by their fucking collar, strap them into a kinky chair, and play them this cutscene. Let's call it the showcase piece of my sensibilities, the vertical slice denoting what I look for in artistic expression. Featured here in its full glory as well is my favorite track in the game, Yasunori Mitsuda's The Bereaved and Those Left Behind, arranged expertly by Akio Noguchi. A piece of music I do enjoy more than Bohemian Rhapsody. Following this late-night play session of mine, I went to bed with a bad taste in my mouth. Bad in a partially good way. This is challenging material. When I engage with what many people consider escapism, I'm looking to be affected, to be slapped in the face and told deal with it. However, I don't think since playing Mother 3 as a newly minted double-digit ager had I felt the thing on my screen punch me in the nose and shout, "Clean that up." This escapist fantasy was assigning me real-world homework with which to contend. And it had been so long, I, in the interim, developed such a high tolerance for slaps and admonishment that perhaps they had become a sincere form of escapism for me, that everything over that line felt like an attack on me personally. You've been spinning your wheels. You only think you want to be challenged. How come this sours your palate? Should not all transcendent works aspire to leave one wanting, introspecting, yearning for possibilities yet unachieved? Well, tastes bad in a partially bad way, too. Sometimes, in fact, all too often, I'm reminded of this persistent amiiboplastic. The RPG epics of 30 years ago were made by scrappy, weirdo, stomach ulcer-inducing, barely stifled visionaries. Kids with creative ambitions far too luxurious to truly flourish in their emergent medium. The RPG epics of today are made at the behest of Fortune 500 children's entertainment conglomerates. My dream game, it may exist, it likely doesn't, please inform me if it does. My dream game aspires to the unfathomable grandeur of an earnest, all-in-one, turn-based Final Fantasy VII remake, or a Final Fantasy VI remake with Yoshitaka Amano-styled, cel-shaded, painterly visuals, or a complete M-rated AAA Xenogears, a Souls-like Terranigma, or whatever the hell Dragon Quest XII is gonna be, or no, seriously, why on this joke of an Earth has there never existed a game whose whole mission statement entailed the authentic, in-motion reproduction of the world's greatest fantasy artists' mind babies? Give me Angel's Egg the game, that'll be my Spider-Verse. In less unhinged terms, what this absurd vision of mine ultimately boils down to is the time-weathered concept art come-to-life idea. Xenoblade 3's trailers fooled me into thinking this might be the one. Up until right here, I sincerely believed it still could have been. It's unrealistic to expect, I know. That's why I call it my dream game. So, it turns out they didn't actually clean that up. They punched me square in the nose, drawing blood, then meekly stammered out a, "Oh shit, sorry, I didn't mean to go that hard, fuck." I believe it was Noah who 5 seconds ago said,
I think I get it now. The meaning behind the smile. I think they were all content with the way it ended. Like they were putting us in charge of the future. Telling us to make a world where everyone can smile. But it just breaks my heart that that was the only smile they could choose. And it really shouldn't have been. The world we have now, it doesn't give us the choice to smile. I'll change it, no matter what. Because that is the legacy that Mio left me.
Even if you're left alone.
Even if I'm alone.
This happening weakens our stance against N and Mobius, running recklessly counter to the simple message of you can't live in the now forever. Fool me twice. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yes, cute bait and switch. Yes, they become so in sync, they're able to behave like the other seamlessly. So much so, they basically become one and the same, Saturday morning cartoon dialogue and all. But I ask you, was it worth it? Was it worth it? Was it worth denying our Mio the chance to say this to our Noah? Was it worth blue-balling my complex emotional response to your work of art? Is life truly worth the same when you work so thoroughly to cheapen death? Noah and Mio don't even embrace following this block-busting reveal. Bro, I like to be ball-busted, not blue-balled by a block-bustingly broken barrage of balefully bleak, borderline bargainous, bureaucratic baggage. This isn't any different to what they did with Fiora in Xenoblade 1, I hear you say. I hear you, I acknowledge you, and shall therefore explain to you how these two reveals really couldn't be any more different in presentation. Fiora's death is that game's inciting incident. She had skill trees to develop, arts to learn, equipment to procure, yet death comes for us all, no matter how numerous one's prospects may be. It was a real shock and an upfront display of confidence on Monolith's part. We're then given the space to grieve alongside Shulk, Rhine, and Dunban for some 25 hours before the rug is pulled out from under us. And I don't believe the presence of foreshadowing for this moment in any way detracts from its gravity. This twist opens up new possibilities. It proclaims to us with aplomb that this story is far from over. Heaps unto us a baker's dozens worth of new questions which all deliciously complement our conflicted bittersweet feelings of relief. Our characters are allowed to process this for some 5 hours and change before we may release our breath in tears. At last reunited, a full-body catharsis. Fiora is back and better than ever. Gameplay-wise, she now lives on borrowed time in a body not fully her own. Consequences. Where Fiora's resurrection opened our mind to myriad possibilities in her story, Mio's death would have done the same for hers. Not in a fridging sense, please don't even start with that. Female love interest adjacent a male protagonist can die in spectacular fashion without also becoming fridge victims in the process, believe it or not. The text here, as I demonstrated, was on track to support that. This is our character's lowest point. Up until now, they had been journeying acutely aware of Mio's dwindling days. In a sense, this could even be seen as an inversion of Fiora's story. Our grief here only builds with time, culminating in a death we weren't 100% certain they'd actually commit to. That's why it hits so damn hard. It's an oh shit, they actually went there moment. In Xenoblade 1, our grief dissipates with time. A hot-blooded yearning for revenge can only sustain you for so long, after all. The characters move forward, up to their eyeballs in new developments, sights, sounds, and people when, oh shit, they actually went there. So then imagine if when Shulk found her on the beach, it was just Mayneth and Fiora was dead for good. Sure, could be interesting, but again, would that be worth it? Like the Robot Queens, not super compelling to shockingly bring a character back only for it to actually be someone else wearing their skin. How's it different from Pythra coming back? It's the end and they say Hajime Mashite. It's a new them, a dang beautiful moment that brings grown men to tears. It just works. If anything, the onus is now on 3 to definitely this time not pull a fast one on us re-dead female lead. How do I think this should have been done if I'm such an expert? Well, first, let me quickly take you back to that point I made about the class inheritance system. If Mio died here for good with the current system in place, that shit wouldn't go over too well. If you hadn't done any work on the Thaumaturge or Lapidurist classes, for example, they'd be rendered inaccessible to the others for the rest of the game. So yeah, what I'm about to propose presupposes the hypothetical implementation of a Final Fantasy V style job freebie fest. Starting from the confrontation with N and M, 86 the ham. It's grating, purple equals evil, remake Sephiroth brain-dead schlock, and I hate it. No body-swapping shenanigans, let's play this straight. There are 2 ways I think this could have played out. One involves committing to Lanz and Senna blowing up, the other does not. Let's say they do. Spare Anton, first of all, that was just distractingly excessive. Now we feel doubly hopeless, kicking ourselves over our failure to identify the Mighty Weakling's earlier conversation as a tall crimson death flag. We're thrown in the clink already having lost much, standing only to lose more. Mio returns home as Noah, Uni, Taion, Riku, and Minana look on, helpless. We Xenogears as normal. Hell, I'm actually fine with the let us walk together imagery. Let it be an off-putting metaphor, that's cool. N executes all the kids and back into the cycle we go. Riku and Minana are brought in for questioning. M looks on, an unreadable expression beneath her mask. Dedicate the entire rest of Chapter 6 to speeding through different phases of our reincarnated party's lives a whole generation later. They'll each live in different Mobius-controlled colonies, though some wispy thread of fate will bind them across time and space. The world has been chewed up even further by annihilation events, and all of our optional heroes have forgotten, barring Triton, the city folk, and a little bit of Shira. Mobius have made public the existence of the city as tensions between the factions have escalated into all-out war. Just another enemy for the poor colonies. Now see, this could be a neat way of expanding the scope of the world, since in the final game there are several colonies we see and hear from but have no earthly clue where they're based, even though we explore all of Ionios. There's really no need to have the whole map be connected, so these unliberated colonies can simply exist off the beaten path, in offshoot areas designed specifically for this prestige tour of a chapter I've thought up. That makes things feel nice and correct, you know? As for the colonies we could have liberated up until now, Let's do like a basic bitch Fire Emblem Kid situation, where the hero from that colony passed down their techniques as well as knowledge of Ouroboros and the truth to future generations. Later on, we can recruit these sequel heroes in sequel quests. This would of course mandate some extensive rewrites of the initial hero quest for sure, since the arc-completing Ascension quests would not jive elegantly with our new structure, but we'd be here all day if I dared take a crack at the finer details there. In brief, you'll be shit out of luck for heroes in colonies you did not liberate prior to Agnes Castle. Ashira can simply be recruited again after remembering some stuff, still in Colony 11 cause fate's a twisted bitch. Ethel's Ascension story can remain largely unchanged, and same with the city folk. Maybe overhaul some details of Fiona's story so we can re-recruit her since we get her so close to the eclipse. And let's leave it at that for now. Back on the story side of things, as we arrive at 9th term for our reborn party, perhaps they hear the call of the Ouroboros stone from on high. The Cloud Keep beckons. Awaiting them there, Riku, Manana, a grown-up Gondor, Queen Nia, and none other than M. Conflict, explanations, yada yada yada, some plot magic is worked and some memory is restored. Why wait until these guys were back in 9th term to round them up? That, along with the rest of this retelling, lies far outside this video's scope. I'll leave it to you to extrapolate and spitball. Also, I'm okay with M persisting as a distinct entity since she's been built up effectively in the narrative, and I mean, come on, who wouldn't be hankering for an in-depth redemption arc following the brief snippet we glimpsed of her multi-generational tragedy? Make M more scummy but less hammy, then set her on a course for redemption, assimilating her into the main party. It writes itself. Our Mio will forever be gone, but her ethos may live on. Now what about if Lanz and Senna survive like normal? We'll still spare Anton, that was distractingly excessive, and the rest is simple really. All unfolds as normal, except this is our Mio, and M makes a heat-of-the-moment decision to stop N carrying out Noah's execution. She joins us in the ensuing boss fight, though for the time being is unable to interlink. Maybe down the line, she and Noah create some freakish Ouroboros-Mobius interlink fusion, and either don't fire the laser or actually commit to destroying the city. Fool me 3 times! That's just some food for thought though, let's return to the reality of things. All the NPCs stand on the sidelines, doing nothing, reacting to nothing like they've entered power-saving mode. This is for the players to gawk at, not you actual denizens of the world. Exercise some goddamn agency! Well hey, Shania has a great moment, but I'm far too checked out at this point to be adequately affected. Fooled 3 times in quick succession, made to scrutinize the NPCs more than our main players, force-fed a musical diet consisting solely of chain attack during supposedly pivotal encounters. I'm done. Only Senna hugs Mio. I get that y'all are Japanese and shit, but you'd have to be an ice-cold motherfucker not to write everyone love-piling this bitch once she revealed the trick. Now she's talking all formal and shit, I hate this. When the chips are down, and all you can think to do is gotcha your audience, you rob your own works of their future sincere, meaningful moments. When an audience is primed to expect fuckery on your end, whatever real character death you have planned will be met with uncertainty trouncing grief. In so many words, Mio should have died here. Our Mio for good. Shit man, it wouldn't even be for good given what Ionios is. The quote-unquote real Mio is still alive. Was this really so hard to commit to? What, you wanted a kiss at the end? We have 2 perfectly valid candidates for that!
Right, what have we got around here?
Man, we could have had a properly decadent Final Fantasy VI or Dragon Quest XI second half here, guys. So what is it I want most from Xenoblade 4? Some spine for a start. But Mio's here and the show must go on, so I will play ball and engage on these terms. Still love this game, after all.
Time for a heroic Extravaganzatory speed round! Silvercoat Ethel, a born leader, tough as nails, yet compassionate in equal measure. The human soul I can most clearly envision existing in our modern world. Of all those shackled to the decade, hers is the cut-short life I mourn more than any. Dutiful Xeon. Of life and death, it may be said, one's absurd adoration of agriculture fosters in me the former, and in one's beef with lands does the latter slough me dead. If I like dudes, I would endeavor to crown this king my husband. Inscrutable Teach. Any way the wind blows, he who carries on living carrying mutilated bodies may be seen as a monster. One look in his eyes, though, and you'll know if he does so by choice. Or Artificer Valdi, a colloquial angel who creates biblical ones. Instruments of destruction only become unseemly when commandeered. Taken as they are, they can be striking, beautiful, more human than the proprietors even. A boy in a man's world, he takes charge and lives his own life to its fullest. Ashenpelt Grey. Has he got any babies? Perhaps not, but he's still daddy. Craft made in Alexandria. Is she a baby? Perhaps so, but she's still mommy. Dawn Hero Isard. The night is darkest at all times if you're continually carrying bags. Could it, however, not be said that those who lie chronically awake live longer than the rest? To foist life upon one's own aching shoulders, it takes a freak of nature, a healer, a village of a man. Ghost Bow Juniper. There are some who rarely, if ever, contemplate. Sometimes that which lies directly in front of you is all one need concern themselves with. When the elements composing your existence are all observable, what need is there to think in the abstract? Can this cause problems? Certainly. Though the adaptability attained amid a life of self-sufficiency just as certainly comes in clutch when a shake-up is due. Undying Blade Ashira. Are any of us all that different? Yes, in many ways. No, in so many more. Were any of us to be cursed eternal, would we not lash out in some way? By repressing or rebelling, roundly renouncing the way we've heretofore lived? The small differences can mount up, make us seem worlds apart, though even just a single minute similarity may tether us back down to earth. City's bulwark Monica. Playing things close to the chest is overrated. Doubly so when you've got such a degree of separation there by default. Turns out trusting in people can be beneficial for a conglomerate of people. True strength is to commiserate with dissenting elements rather than eliminate them. Leaders are only as valuable as their weakest links, after all. Wrathfist Gondor. Not a weak link by any means, rather an unpredictable one. Bitch Queen? In the eyes of some, perhaps, though you'll always be looked on as one if you're at all the type to hold firm principles. Sometimes it's just about sending a message, plain and simple. Proud Banner Fiona. Those who have lost, truly lost, never flaunt that fact. It's not as if doing so gains you anything true. Possibility, opportunity, resilience, the wellspring that is a survivor. That she can still wave her banner with pride inspires in me immense hope. The future awaits.
Defiant Captain Triton, what human beings ought to be.
Glory Song Miyabi. Exceptional human being, as innocent as a soldier can be, deeply selfless, I want more. Alongside Chris, she is the most underutilized character in the game. Their leitmotifs contribute to the story more than they do. Some moldering Kamuravi. Of the tempered blaze, alighting from pyres on high, the apex daddy. Number 7 Sagiri. We give much thought to our identities, mull over who we truly are. The answer is more often than not painfully simple. Our experiences and resultant fancies shape us to the core. A lifelong search for meaning is, by the universe's estimation, gratuitous when all you really require is a rice ball and a friend. Pain and suffering be damned. Artificial Blade Eno. Rambunctious, hilarious, infectious. She facilitates some of the best hangoutitudinous in the whole game. Really nothing much to say on her, she's simply an A+ homie. Jewel Right Masha.
You know, she's one of those rare characters I find cool exactly because they're so uniquely boring. I actually mean that as a compliment. She's just a highfalutin mommy who appreciates beautiful things. Neat. You might say she's nothing special, therefore she is. Mundanity is required for a setting to feel real. Maybe controversial to say, but the main story is done now. Just waiting patiently on a final action climax. From here on, it's quest o'clock and they're all great and fun, but at this point, they're fun in the same way cleaning your home is fun. You partake because it's satisfying and it would be foolish not to. Aside from that, though, is doing so really all that enriching? Spending time on something as a matter of course? I feel hollow, sapped, disenchanted. My favorite cast can cheer me up though, right?
It's Colony Omega.
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 Colony Omega, I mean.
That's not how you pronounce that.
Omega.
Apikia Omega. Colony Omega.
Hey, it's Mwamba and friends. Fool me 4, 5, 6 times, can't even be mad anymore. Honestly, this would be chill if not for all the previous foolin'. Highlights of the gang's quest lines? Uni's is pretty good, if only because it takes place in the one corner of Ionios that feels truly missable. It's a nice area. Lanz's is great for his character. Weird that he's taken aback by H being...
a woman?
Why is that line there? H is also really cool and feels like more missed potential for a main story antagonist. Mio's is... kinda lame. good scenes in there, but this all kind of feels like after school hour storytelling coming off the events we just witnessed, you know? Noah's... I often forget Chris is a character in this game. Ship him to the island of misfit potentials. I don't know. Tyon's is really nice, though we never did get to bury or hand off Nimue's watch, which I find very odd. Uncle Checky's smoke pole's getting real dusty up on that wall, but it's good vibes up in the Lost Colony. Tyon has never looked more alive than he does in this quest, and it brings a gigantic smile to my face. He's just a little guy, a little dork, and I love him. A definite highlight of the endgame. You've been waiting, but Senna's real side story is told through Sagiri's quests. I also don't really have a problem with her proper one either. Yes, the focus is on Gondor and Mobius Shania, but let's not forget Senna is often characterized as an observer. And like with the mighty weakling scene, that's not necessarily a bad thing. She's learning to learn by watching others instead of foisting them atop unreachable pedestals. I see Gondor and Shania's struggle mirrored deep inside Senna's 15 TP brain. The straightforward aspect wanting nothing more than to charge full steam ahead, taking on all comers, versus the disillusioned, deeply insecure aspect seeing no real purpose in carrying on. Because this is such rich, in-your-face material for Gondor and Shania both, its sleight of handily distracts one from the underpinned Senna developments. Plus, they're all short queens. Sagiri, too. Now here, we see Senna all the way out of her shell, holding the reins of a story. I hesitate to use the term pet project because... well, that's dehumanizing, but those are the first words that come to mind observing Senna's attempts to befriend this neurodivergent machina. She's trying with all her heart to help out a kindred spirit. The gang recognize this, step back, and let her go to town. They're not going to throw her to the Wolves when the going gets tough, of course, but they're more than willing to let her take point on this adventure. And I just think that's really fucking cool. Sagiri's circumstances, different and uncharted to our party as they are, cause Senna no small amount of distress. Early in the quest, she has an anxiety attack, and it may be one of the most true-to-life depictions of one I've ever seen in a fantasy setting. Nothing extremely upsetting has taken place, it's merely a mounting of smaller upsetting factors culminating in an I don't know if I can do this moment. That's mature writing right there. Makes her eventual ass-kicking and deposement of Consul F all the more satisfying. Senna working to name and reintegrate the exceptionally unsocialized soldiers of Colony Zero during the Ascension quest, my chest swells with pride. That's my fucking girl right there, coming into her own. To anyone who says Senna got shafted by the narrative, she may not be an amiibo plastic sheened body pillow loudmouth about her character development, but she's a hardcore human being who grows, changes, and loves. What is missing from her story? Nothing. The Yorin stuff is resolved real quick, and it somehow feels at the same time way too late and way too early for this. Too late, cause... what, we fought front-facing D twice and Yorin alone once, and that was ages ago. Now it's basically the end of the game, and we're insisting this plot thread was a real thing. Too early, because if you are in fact insisting this plot thread was a real thing, it, like many others, desperately needed more time to cook. Little Jay realizes the error of his ways all in the span of like 15 minutes, and I'm feeling numb by the end of it. Way more excited by the classic Xenoblade motifs in Queen Nia's lore dump than the payoff to this long-standing conflict. And that's not a good thing. I won't bore you with the details of Ionios' inception, just know it's rad as hell. The unspoken details even more so. Check out Dumb Xeno's channel, that's some quality analysis. The Robot Melia joke is no longer funny. This whole scenario is Xenoblade's take on the Leslie sewer dive. When that's done, we're allowed to enter the most boring final dungeon of recent memory. A stunning achievement when your joint features such stimulating song lyrics as purple, purple, and more purple. If you're not gonna take your own setting seriously, why should I? Lil N realizes the error of his ways all in the span of like 15 minutes, though Queen Melia's still underway series-spanning arc keeps me in check. What a character Melia is. I'm immensely impressed by what they've been able to do with her since Xenoblade 1. An equal parts harrowing and inspiring tale of perseverance in the face of spirit-crushing tragedy. And now she has a new group of hip and cool friends. It brings the best of tears to my eyes, dried immediately by the gloomy-ass Keves Castle area theme. We fuck up X and Y, who both perish in the most perfectly unceremonious way. Obligatory Xenoblade mech porn. Zed's neat but not main villain material, we beat him first try. And then imagine if Anakin's Force Ghost waxed motivational a bunch to Luke right after dying. That's synonym, baby! You know that thing I said about music elevating a scene? Well, this scene strives to undermine Mitsuda's brilliant composition here, How the Future Endures. Every time I listen to the track while out and about, it's enjoyed to the fullest, though a niggling tick in the back of my 10 TP brain always drudges up flashes of this asininity. Tetsuya Takahashi hijacks the characters for a bit to proselytize to us the moral of the story. A spectacularly tear-jerking parting takes place, though the first time around I had too much of a bad taste in my mouth to enjoy it. If you were like me and hadn't yet completed the Ethel Kamuravi Ascension quest, you're also distracted and confused as shit throughout this whole thing. The heroes didn't need to be here, they're only set dressing in the end. Our party and their marketing clusters are of course the only ones who really matter. And the Queens and Poppy and Polly King Rex roll credits. Did the end of this video feel rushed? If so, I think I did a suitable job replicating the texture of this game. When all's said and done, I still love it. Hate is a word I reserve for a select few individual elements, definitely not the complete package. Let's call it more than the sum of its confounding parts. When you love something so deeply as I love Xenoblade, the thing's flaws jump out all the more acrobatically. I'm gonna react more strongly if someone I love develops a drinking problem than if the guy down at the convenience store does. I'm not a monster, I still feel for him, but I'm not gonna pump out a 2-hour manifesto about it. An intervention is often most effective when held by those who know you inside and out. Do I claim to be an expert who knows what goes down behind closed doors at Monolith Soft? Not even close. Do I claim to be someone who listens, pays extremely close attention to all he loves, lo a metric fuckton of granules twixt core and cosmos? Yes. And paying extremely close attention to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I say to you, breast aflame with passion, I am more excited than ever for the future. To redeem this valuable, commendable experience. Hey, you made it to the end. I appreciate it. Wanted to bookend this with just some more composer appreciation, because it truly defies all tenets of logic and reasoning how much I adore these composers and their work and how much they resonate with me to my core. So I guess starting off with Ace, I'm gonna count them as one composer, one entity, because we don't really have any insight into whether, you know, one track might be more Tomo leaning or one might be more Chico leaning. We just don't have that information. So Ace as one entity, they're intense, amazing. I think they take musical ideas and realize them to their fullest potential, take them to their natural endpoint, to the most extreme point you can. You listen to something like Argentum, you listen to something like Mobius Battle, by the time you're done listening to them, you're like, that makes so much sense? And yet I've never heard it before. It's never been done before. That's the first time I've heard anything like that. So they're that kind of composer. They have their own strong, unique voice that is all their own, and yet they play so perfectly within an established musical sandbox, I guess, if that makes sense. Can you tell I'm not a music theorist? My favorite track of theirs would have to be Kingdom of Torna. I count both day and night compositions, unless the melody's different, like a Valak Mountain or something. So yeah, Kingdom of Torna, wow, chef's kiss, amazing track. Kenji Hiramatsu, he has like a real, I don't know if this makes sense, but he has like a real workman's quality to his compositions. He feels like he really like hunkers down and just puts his whole self into a composition. You can really feel that. He's so versatile. He's like a chameleon. I've mistaken him for every other composer. You know, I've listened to fucking in Xenoblade 2, listen to Kingdom of Uraya. I'm like, that sounds like Manami Kiyota, but nope, Hiramatsu. In 3, what's the thing I listened to? Alfeto Valley, I'm like, that's gotta be Ace. No, Hiramatsu. Fort Ovirbis, that's Mitsuda. Nope, Hiramatsu. So he's insane in that way. He's the most, well, he does the most stuff on the soundtrack. Like, it's the most well-balanced, I think. out of everyone. Yeah, it's just super well-made stuff. Like, consistently cranks out masterpieces, that guy. I'm immensely impressed with him. My favorite of his is a bit tricky, because if it's my favorite thing that he's worked on in the series, it's Engage the Enemy, but that's, of course, co-written with Ace. So my favorite thing that he's done solo is Battle Torna. Another Torna. That soundtrack's just unbelievable. Manami Kiyota is probably my favorite. I think Mitsuda makes the best music, but Kyoto's music is my favorite to listen to. You could like pair that down. That's the music that, when paired down, it would still be like unbelievably transcendent. Just the melodies alone, they're amazing. Yeah, just super heartfelt, and even her tracks that aren't heartfelt, like the like more atmospheric and creepy and horrifying ones are, ooh, my finger, are just as resonant, I think, and they truly don't get enough love, in my opinion, from what I've seen. Excellent composer, Kyoto. My favorite of hers would have to be Converging Emotions from 3. That is like the natural culmination of her works on, like, fucking calendar reminder cut me off. It's a natural culmination of her works on tracks like Thoughts to a Friend / A Friend on My Mind and A Place in the Sun. If those both feel like sitting on a park bench with your buddy, just in an afternoon, for an hour during an afternoon, just catching up, chilling, then Converging Emotions feels like you're sitting on a park bench with your buddy for a full 24 hours in all kinds of weather conditions, everything under the sun. It's just like, her work on 3 in general is so, she's matured so much as a composer. It's amazing to see. I love all of her work, all of it. Not a one I dislike of hers. Well, maybe in 2 there's like some MIDI sounding ones that were like, eh, but for the most part, A+ composer. So Yasunori Mitsuda, generational talent, obviously. What I love so much about Japanese composers is that all the work feels like it's given an equal weight. Like, he can make something 20 plus years ago, like Delightful Specchio, almost 30 years ago, I guess, wow. And that's just goofy and shit. And then he makes something like Eclipse in Xenoblade 3, and it's like, this is modern opera. And neither one of them feels like they received a disproportionate amount of attention. Like, they both feel like, yep, I'm making a track. This is what this scene calls for. This is what this location calls for. This is necessary. And I love that. I love that mentality. What to say about him? Just better than any Hollywood composer. Never mind the 21st century. All of them throughout history. His work is better than all of them. I'm saying a lot. Fine, I say that when I talk off the cuff. Nothing much else to say on him. Just what can be said about him that hasn't already been said. My favorite track of his is simple, Beyond the Sky from Xenoblade 1. In fact, that's my favorite track in the whole series. If you can get past the sort of iffy lyrics, it's a beautiful song. My second favorite song of all time. Right behind Pollyanna from Mother. Mariam Abounnasr. Not a very big sample size of her work. She's primarily been an arranger for Mitsuda's work, but I mean, Black Mountains has already become my third favorite field composition in all of gaming, right behind the main ones from the Nier games, Hills of Radiant Wind, yeah, and City Ruins. All of her work has impressed me, so I can't really say a single bad thing about her. She's excellent. Yoko Shimomura, she of course opened the series up, hasn't really contributed since 1, but her contributions are strong and have stood the test of time. Her work, just generally, in all of her work across the decades, another generational talent, of course. It feels like, when the seasons change from definitively from winter to spring, and you open the window and that nice spring breeze comes wafting in, that smell, that's what her work feels like to me. Yeah, just nothing bad to say about Shimomura either. Nothing bad to say about any of them. Shimomura is an exceptional composer. This is the best Shimomura composition, I forgot to mention. And the other guest composers, like I guess Yutaka Kunigo, they all do fantastic work. I have no complaints on what they've done for the series. I would like to hear more from all of them, because what they've done has been excellent. Yeah, that's all I really have to say on the composers. I fucking love them. I could ramble about them all day, but that would get incoherent, and I want this to be a bit more to the point. So I'm gonna keep making videos like this that will take longer to make, but also some shorter form stuff, some Let's Play stuff. I already have some recording in the backlog. Got some Eiyuden coming, thinking of doing some Judgment, Ryuga Gotoku Studios Judgment, because I haven't played that before. Haven't played Eiyuden either, and I've been enjoying it, I've been liking it. I've definitely been complaining about some stuff, but it's mostly been a fault of hard mode so far, and I've switched to normal by episode 5, so look forward to that. Also been planning on some Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, because I have not beaten the original, and I would love to really sink my teeth into it, because I've never owned it myself. I've played it on friends' Wii's and GameCubes, but never by myself, so I want to get to that. And also was thinking of some Lisa the Painful, because that game looks amazing, and I played like the first half hour to an hour and loved it, and I want to really, again, sink my teeth into it. And got some other stuff planned. There's a lot in the pipeline, and I'm excited. The first batch of videos I've recorded have not been of the ideal bitrate. I'm a complete novice at this, you'll have to forgive me for that. But until I have the means to... well, I started recording at a better bitrate eventually, and those videos look a bit better, but still not of, like, professional quality. So I would like to, when I have the means, as soon as possible, be able to get videos looking really good. But for now, they look perfectly watchable, I'd say. So if you like me or my style of commentary, then I hope you'll stick around in spite of the less than ideal video quality. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. It means the world. I put a lot of work into this, so mwah. Keep kissing. That's all I can think to do. French kiss. See you in the next one. Woo!